So one overarching theme that is at the root of both red pill ideology and conservatism is this idea that you are at great risk of being scammed, and you have to carefully met out things like charity and compassion, because scammers are always trying to steal it from you and take advantage of you. And of course, this is how conservatives explain a lot of the wealth inequality under capitalism. They have to draw that distinction between the deserving poor and undeserving poor in order to push austerity. And with red pill, it's often used as a way to explain why the world simply just doesn't fit their viewpoint. The facts don't line up with what they claim, and people don't act like selfish, hypergamous monsters. They actually tend to care about each other and get pleasure from doing nice things for the people they care about. So with conservatives, this might manifest as opposition to things like school lunch programs or really any kind of welfare that doesn't benefit the ultra-wealthy. And they have this obsession with making sure that whoever gets these programs definitely deserves it, and they are fine with kids going hungry. I don't know what an undeserving kid is as far as school lunches, but apparently they do. And this is also true with red pill, where they are obsessed with being taken advantage of. And it's infuriating to hear them talk about how their partner did something and they know it's because she was trying to manipulate them, or their partner asked something completely reasonable of them, and they will go on these forums after a fight and of course be validated that no, they're completely in the right. She should not expect you to do basic housework or fulfill your promises or do anything that might show that they care about or appreciate their partner, because they find it emasculating. And you just need to stop dating her, because all women just want to control and hurt you, and that's obviously what she's doing. There's no way possible that her viewpoint could be reasonable or she could actually be right about something, because that's just not how women are. And of course, misogynists would have great issue with either apologizing for when they are wrong, if they're even able to see when they're wrong, or admitting that a woman could be right about something because of how they view women as inferior, both logically and intellectually, and really not even being worthy of an apology if they are wrong. And the same holds true with sexual pleasure. Now, on one hand, they want to be seen as studs, but on the other hand, they don't want to extend any effort to actually make sure that their partner is fulfilled sexually or emotionally or otherwise. So if their partner is not enjoying sex, then it must be her fault because they're a stud and everything they do is perfect. So she is just being too demanding. So they really don't offer much as far as either emotional support or sexual pleasure or even friendship with women. So this is why obviously not a lot of women are going to want to date them, but in the red pill ideology they can chalk this up to women being too picky or women being too shallow or being too focused on things like wealth and height. It's actually really sad to see them obsess over strangers they've never met, who aren't really even their friends, and how they are worried that these complete strangers will see them as potentially whipped in their relationships. They're not worried about making their partner happy or finding out what their partner wants or being a good partner. They're just worried about what people like Andrew Tate might think of them, because it's the worst possible thing in the world for Andrew Tate to think that you are just a little too nice to your girlfriend. Because emotional attachment and having someone care about you, that's for women. You don't need that. You don't need someone to hold you. You don't need someone to take care of you when you're sick. You don't need someone to relate to you and talk to you and be your friend. You don't need someone to start a family with. You don't need kids to be a father to. That's the woman's job. All you need is a woman to have sex with and to demonstrate how much of an alpha man you are. And one root of this is likely, especially if they've been in this misogynistic, anti-feminist, red pill mindset for a long time, is the fact that the only women that will talk to them are the ones that they pay in some way, because they really don't offer anything to either relationships or sex, because everything they do is self-centered and almost antagonistic. They're obviously not interested in being partners with people, and if they are, they're constantly paranoid that their partner is taking advantage of them. So they end up with parasocial relationships with OnlyFans models or pornography, because this is the only interaction with women that they can get, and even people who care about them are not likely to put up with their abusive and controlling behavior. So what they land on, what they're forced to do, of course, is to pay women to serve this purpose and show all the other men that they're trying to impress how awesome they are and why they should all adopt this really antisocial and rightfully named black pill ideology. And you may have picked up on this already, but this is obviously a huge, huge cope. It's an excuse for why they haven't been able to make any relationship work, or why they're still single and hitting on women half their age and generally not doing all that well in the dating scene, despite being the exact type of man that should have all the partners they want. This is how they excuse that and tell themselves that they're actually better off single because there is nothing that they would gain from a relationship. In fact, everybody who is in a relationship is secretly unhappy. It's kind of the sitcom version of doing relationships, and this is validating to them because it is a lot easier to accept that than to either accept some of your faults and working on who you are as a person, or divorcing yourself from this cultish red pill mindset. It's easier just to blame women, and so they do, and the results are not pretty. And I want to be clear that there's nothing wrong with being single or being non-monogamous or being aromantic. That's not what's going on here. These are men who want to be in a relationship or even feel that they are entitled to a relationship, and the way they view relationships is incredibly toxic and abusive, and they are definitely willing to make people suffer because of what they feel they are entitled to and do not have. I mean, I wish I had the answers for what to do to reach out to men like this, because they're going to cause a lot of people to suffer, obviously, whoever is in partnership with them or close to them while they're going down this rabbit hole, because it is generally a gradual thing. Like, they'll get in a fight with their girlfriend and they'll feel pissed off, and they'll find these men who tell them everything they want to hear and don't think about, maybe you should be a little more skeptical of that, because when someone is saying everything you want to hear, it's probably because they want your money or they want to manipulate you. But men have been socialized in a way where they're very susceptible to this, unfortunately. It is at the root of patriarchy that men have to be insecure about their masculinity because it is something that is hierarchical, and therefore any failure to live up to these standards makes you a woman, which obviously is going to breed a lot of resentment and feelings of hostility and superiority towards women. But I don't really know what the answer is, because these problems are rooted in their version of masculinity and in patriarchy, but they are not going to be willing to listen to me or feminists. They're not going to read bell hooks, which they definitely should, because if you haven't read like All About Love and her work on masculinity, she is much better than me at this. She's very compassionate and understanding, to the point of, I mean, she is a saint, honestly, and I understand that that is probably what a lot of these men need, but anyone who offers it to them is probably going to be met with a lot of hostility and maybe even abuse. And I hope that men find help in therapy before it gets so bad that they really are truly alone. And while it is true that there is an epidemic of male loneliness, what doesn't follow is that women should have to put up with bad behavior or even abuse, or lower what's, quite frankly, are very reasonable standards when it comes to most women out there, rather than these men changing their behavior. And after all, these men could hang out with each other. When it comes to male loneliness, it isn't just that women aren't dating a certain group of men, it's that they're not hanging out with their friends either. They are completely isolated, and that's how they get hooked into these communities, and that's why it's so hard for them to get out, because it really is their social circle. It's all they know, and that keeps reinforcing the same bad behavior, the same misuse of statistics, and quite frankly lies. But that's one way where conservatism and red pill ideology have a very similar mindset, where they're very fearful and insecure about being taken advantage of, and they simply can't imagine that people can be generous or care about others, even if it might be to the detriment. They still get joy and satisfaction out of helping another person and seeing another person happy, and that's of course doubly true in a relationship. So they have to come up with these bizarre scenarios and obsess over what people like Andrew Tate might think of her relationship with their girlfriend.